What you do know is that time wasting in football, soccer, foosball, whatever you want to call it, is a big deal. But what you might not know is actually how big of a deal it really is, and it's getting worse every year. In the Premier League, for example, just 55.9% of actual matches have the ball in play. And if that sounds insanely low, it is. It's the lowest in an 11-year stretch that Sky News felt like making a graph of. It's all very confusing, but the more time in play is on the right and the less time in play is on the left, and time is moving top to bottom. Why did they do it like this? This hurts my brain. It's made even more painful by the fact that you actually have to accept cookies in order to even be able to see the graph. So I hope you enjoy being able to see the graph, because I'm now going to be followed around by Sky News for the rest of my life. Get out of here. What's even crazier is that percentage of time that the ball has been in play has actually been going down as the amount of total time of the game has been going up. They've been adding more stoppage time to try and combat time wasting, and it still hasn't been enough. On this beautiful graph, you can see the average total time in the Premier League specifically over the last 10 seasons, and the average total time has gone up almost 2 minutes from 10 years ago in the game when it comes to stoppage time, but the average time in play, the average total time, not the percentage, but the total time in play, despite the increase in overall time in the game, has gone down. It's at 54 minutes and 53 seconds. Even though all these stats have been Premier League specific, this is not a Premier League specific issue. In fact, the Premier League is actually doing better than a lot of leagues around Europe. Now, the Dutch Eredivisie is fantastic. It averages 59% with the ball in play, but the Scottish Premiership, for example, has just 52.3% of the ball in play during the game. That's just 50 minutes. 50 minutes, 48 seconds. In fact, the Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, and the Portuguese League all rank below the Premier League in the percentage of time that the ball is in play over the course of the game. So this is a really significant and pervasive problem. And in particular fixtures, it can get absolutely ridiculous. Take Crystal Palace against Leeds, which provided the average matchgoer, somebody that paid for a ticket, somebody that wasted their Saturday to watch this match, with just 43 minutes and 46 seconds on the clock. Now, obviously, they played a bunch of time, but they only had the ball in play for 43 minutes and 46 seconds. That's just 43%. And they're not even the only game in the Premier League this season that's had under 44% of the match time with the ball in play. Leeds versus West Ham was also on there. And then Leeds versus Brentford. Are you noticing a trend? Because Sky Sports actually did a good job of compiling a list of the teams that are bad at this. For example, in games that Man City participates in, the ball is in play over 62% of the time, whereas Leeds is basically the Scottish Premiership in the Premier League, and so is Newcastle, for the record. A lot of the teams break even into the middle, but look, basically everybody but Manchester City is coming in below what the Eredivisie averages on average, which is what an average is. Subscribe button's also down here too. I don't know why. It looks very pressable though. I mean, the result of all these different numbers and studies is that officials around the world are trying to come up with a way to combat this, and they've come up with a couple of different strategies. But in my opinion, they should just use Manscaped to save time in the bathroom.
This is a public service announcement. Manscaped now has beard products, and now brand new nose and ear hair trimmer. If you haven't already heard, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming are traveling north of your pole.
And if you want to get any of these wonderful products at Manscaped, the link at the top of the description will give you 20% off and free shipping on your order. But the biggest new break for me is this Beard Hedger Pro kit. When you get it, it looks exactly like this. And it all starts with the Beard Hedger. That's a rotary wheel that gives you 20 different beard cutting lengths. It's really tough on hair, but smooth on your skin. It's waterproof, it's cordless. There's also a bunch of dermatologist recommended stuff that you can use. I'm still learning how to use them because I didn't really know I had to take care of my skin. I just kind of assumed it would always be there. Suppose it will be, but I'll never look as luscious as I would if I just used this beard conditioner, beard balm, boom, beard oil, boom, beard shampoo, boom. All that, plus if you're the type of person with a really significant beard that I'm clearly not, get these nice combs. Get 2 different sizes of. So if you want this excellent beard keeping kit, or you want the Weed Whacker 2.0 that can take care of the nose and ear hair, link in the top of the description, 20% off and free shipping. And thank you to Manscaped for allowing us to fund an incredibly large team of editors to do as many videos as we do. Thank you guys for making me look good. As good as I can look anyways. But outside of Manscaped, how are officials attempting to address time wasting? Well, this took center stage at the World Cup in Qatar, where Pierluigi Collina is the head of the officiating decision-making for the tournament, introduced the idea of much more accurate stoppage time by saying we've asked referees to calculate stoppage time more accurately. Wow, that's deep, dude. Whew. Wow. He went on to say the matter of matches lasting for even less than 50 minutes of active time is something that comes from quite a long time ago. So already in Russia, the 2018 World Cup, we asked referees to calculate stoppage time more accurately to be given at the end of each half. And the biggest example was actually England's match against Iran, where 23 minutes of stoppage time was added on because of 2 significant injuries that occurred over the course of the game that were accurately represented. And as a result of this application of timekeeping, time wasting seemed to go down over the course of the tournament. Don't just take my word for it, it actually went down. You see these blue dots are all of the group stage matches, but then we see the last 16, there's less time wasting. In the semifinals, there was less time wasting. And in the quarterfinals, we have our I hate statistics, but it's like a line of regression, progression, I don't know. It's a line that is the average of those dots at a given point. I'm in pain. What this measures is the average amount of added time that was given. Now, assuming that added time was applied evenly across the whole tournament, that means that there were less incidents that required more added time as the tournament went on because of the way they were enforcing the added time. Does that make sense? This is a very common solution, is that you want more accurate added time, but there's another solution. The idea of a 60-minute in-play clock that starts and stops, and it's 1 hour long, stops whenever the ball is not in play. Now, the chief refereeing officer at PGMAL, which you're sitting here going, what's PGMAL? The Professional Game Match Officials Board, which is essentially the English FA's refereeing association. Well, he said that if we wanted to institute something like 60-minute in-play game clocks, you would need to do extensive testing on that in different environments to weigh the positives and negatives. He says that specifically right there. Yeah. He did add, I hope these trials take place. Then there's also the idea that you can just start carding people more aggressively for time-wasting actions, which is actually happening in the Premier League, as you can see, by another lovely graph, where at current point of the season, there have been more yellow cards given for time-wasting actions than previous seasons by a pretty wide measure, so they're on pace to break the record at this point in the year for most yellow cards handed out for time-wasting offenses. You could also argue that that's just happening because people are trying to waste time more. Is the cart leading the horse? Is the horse leading the cart? I don't know. The horse is leading the cart. Now, I couldn't tell you which one of these options is going to be the best one. To me, the 60-minute clock that starts and stops feels too much like American sports, and I would get offended because I got into soccer too, because I have a lot of American sports to watch. And, soccer, football, it feels different. It feels fluid. But in order to get time wasting out of the game, you have to make it, one, not worth it for the players, because the only reason players do it is because in the competitive balance, if you flop, if you take 30 seconds to take a goal kick, you're much less likely to get a card than to get something advantageous for your team. There's a reason that people do it, right? If you made it not practical to flop, a VAR could just be in the guy's ear going,
that was a flop, yellow card,
every single time, then there would be much less of an incentive to flop. You'd see people running through challenges because the competitive incentive would be to do that. There's also the idea that the referee already has a ton to do. Do we really want to add too much more on top of their timekeeping duties? Sir Alex Ferguson made this argument in 2012, and he said it's a flaw in the game that referees are responsible for timekeeping. Arsenal chairman David Dean has a similar argument. If you ask any referee, they would tell you they don't need and don't want to keep the time anymore. They are managing a game of football and they have got too much to do. So if we really want to address this, you have to make it not a competitive incentive to waste time. And when injuries or VAR reviews or other things pop up, you need to allow a separate timekeeping entity to actually keep track of that amount of time. Honestly, I feel like that's what the fourth official should be doing. Can anybody reasonably tell me what that guy's job is outside of just getting yelled at by everybody on both benches? Anyways, if you can take away the competitive incentive to waste time, that's the solution to this problem. And I imagine we'll see a combination of these few ideas over the next couple of years, as well as a huge announcement that this is going to be a big emphasis the same way they did before Qatar, so that once players got the memo, they started just not doing it as much. Thank you for watching this video, and don't worry, I got you. You're like, man, I gotta figure out what I gotta do next. You don't need to. You can just keep binging, because I've got a video for you right here about why the Premier League is so much richer than every other league, what's contributing to that, and how severe the problem actually is. It's kind of crazy. The numbers are absolutely ridiculous, and I'm not just talking transfer spends. Watch that, and bye.